So, you want to be a DM? Here's what you need. Dudes of Divination style.
So Brandon, we etched out a few things that Dudes of Divination are telling you need as a DM to be. What's the first thing on our list?
Well, obviously, you need the source material for the system that you're going to play. There is a plethora of role-playing games out there. For simplicity's sake, we're just going to stick to 5e D&D, because that's what most of our videos reference. And also for simplicity's sake, we're going to say books. There's multiple ways to get these books. There's PDF, there's Hero Lab, there's all kinds of different things. But we're just going to say good old-fashioned books.
Right.
I would say the only books that are necessary to play the game are...
You're going to need 3 of them.
Yeah. You're going to need your 3 core books. And there has been 3 core books since 3rd edition, maybe 2nd even. There's your Player's Handbook, which is like your core rule book. That has your rules about skills, how they work, feats, character creation, combat, everything like that.
And it's kind of misleading because the Player's Handbook is not really the Player's Handbook. It should just be called Rules.
Core rule book.
Yeah,
right. Pathfinder got it right when they called it the core rule book. And a lot of other systems, when they come out with their version of the Player's Handbook, they don't call it the Player's Handbook. They call it the core rule book, and it has all of the same things in it. Just a D&D thing, Player's Handbook.
Yeah. So you're gonna want the Player's Handbook. You're gonna want the Monster Manual, and I'd say buy these 2 things first,
Right.
because you're gonna want the players, and then you're gonna want to know how to play the enemies and adversaries in your world. The DM guide or Dungeons Master's Guide in 5e, it is very useful. It is a very helpful tool. I wouldn't necessarily say you need it your first game. It has the biggest things that it has in there is how to do XP, how to do magic. It gives you a huge long list of magic items, and it also gives you traps, which honestly you can pretty much make up yourself. You don't really need a rule book for that. So it's a very useful tool. Obviously I have one, we have one.
Mm-hmm.
It's, we use it, but if this is your first time DMing or you're wanting to get into a new system, be sure you check out what books you're getting and just don't buy every book, because, some books you're not going to need until down the line.
Exactly.
Save yourself a little bit of coin.
If you wanna run on Sword Coast and you wanna get the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide, that's fine. But little splat books like that, just using Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide as an example, they're unnecessary. And a lot of times if you're not running in that, it's just gonna sit on your shelf. Xanathar's Guide to Everything, it's a great book. It has a lot of player options, but if it's your first time as a DM, you probably don't want all those options because it's just going to be more confusing to you and your players.
Yeah, it's really going to learning a new system is already hard enough. Adding on every option the game has listed at the time of when you're going into it is just really going to throw your head into a blender. And we don't want you to blend your heads.
No.
So
that's one other thing that I would add. If you're picking up a system, like an established system, like if you're playing 3.5 D&D or Pathfinder or 2nd edition D&D or whatever, if you pick up a system and you go online and see what books are available in the system and the list is longer than 5, I would definitely limit it to core only.
yeah.
So you want your core rulebook, and if there is a monster manual option, you want that so that you can learn how to read monster stat blocks and stuff. DM guide if that exists. And that's it. I wouldn't go too far beyond that just to not overwhelm yourself with information right away. Because Pathfinder, for example, has 6 bestiaries, which is 6 monster manuals. And as a first-time DM, you don't want to have to worry about 1,800 pages worth of monsters.
And not only that, but you don't have to going through 1,800 pages to find that monster. I mean, maybe, 3 adventures down the line, and you're like, hey, I want this one adventure, this one beast from Bestiary 4. Okay, go buy that one. You don't have to buy 2 and 3.
Right.
Go buy which ones you want. And that's kind of our rant about books. They're a very nice tool, and if you are a serious player, go nuts, grab all of them. But if you're just starting out, just grab what you need, because you don't want to overinvest and then have that regret of, oh man, I never used these books.
And then be selling your stuff on eBay for a third of what you paid for it.
That's another story.
Sticking with the topic of not overwhelming yourself, know your material.
Yes.
This is probably more for new DMs, people who have never DM'd before, so you need to know your material. After you buy your player's handbook and your monster manual and your DM guide, give it at least a page through. Understand how the game works, understand what the different dice are, what skills are, what feats are, what class and race is. Just
how
grasp the game before you just jump right in and say, all right, we're going to play. Because if you do that and you don't have any idea, you're going to waste the majority of your time paging around in your player's handbook trying to find how the rules work for everything. And D&D is a complicated game, and it is a time-consuming game. So anything that you can do to better your knowledge of the game is just going to make your game go faster and go smoother and make a more enjoyable experience for everybody.
Yeah, and obviously you don't have to read every monster in the monster manual. Don't read every monster in the monster manual.
No, read the monsters that you're going to use.
And read usually at the beginning of every monster manual book, it'll give you, this is how you read
how to read a
stat block. Because some DMs, some very new DMs, you won't know how to do that, and that's fine. The books will tell you, and they are very good at laying it out and helping you through that. So that's that. The next thing you need is players, and you don't need to go find veteran players. Having a veteran player or having a group of veteran players you're playing with is great as a new GM. It may seem very intimidating. It is probably the best way you can learn how to DM, because they will tell you everything. And as long as they're not jerks, they're going to tell you everything you're doing wrong and help you, because obviously they want to have a good game. You want to have a good game. They're going to work with you to polish you out as a GM to make you good.
Yeah, if you are DMing for people that have DM'd before, they're a great resource for you for a rule that you might not know. If they want to do something, there's no shame in saying, oh, I'm not really sure how that works. Because chances are somebody at the table with you does. And they can sort of backseat drive you a little bit, and just help you through those bumps in the road that you'll get eventually. Yeah, you might not know right out of the gate.
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna struggle the first time you have to learn the difference between resistance and immunity, and having someone there to just be like, oh well, resistance is half damage, immunity is no damage, is just something you'll learn as a DM down the road. And it, like Brandon said, there is no shame in asking for help with D&D, because as your players want the same thing you want to have a great time. And speaking of time, you need to pick out a day to play. You can get 10 players all ready to go, but if every player has a different day they want to play on, there's not 10 days in the week. But if everyone has a different day, you're going to have a really hard time playing your D&D game over the span of a week, because no one's going to show up on the same day. So you want to make sure that you get your players and you either set a time or you ask and you be like, hey, I'm available day. Saying days as if they're not universal. I'm available Mondays, Fridays, and Saturdays. Just let me sit here in my shame for a bit.
Wallow in it.
I'm available Mondays and Fridays, and then whoever's available, come jump in, just explain your situation. There's nothing wrong with being a new DM, obviously. That just means the game is growing and your group is growing. And even if you're exposing new players to the game, be like, hey, a lot of times when starting a D&D game usually starts from people who get together and play board games a lot. And then one person's like, hey, let's try this role-playing game. That sounds like fun. And a lot of groups get that stigma to like, I don't really want to do a role-playing game. There's, it's just new and weird. But, like, if you're already playing board games, just go play Talisman. They'll play Talisman a couple times. They'll really like it. Then they'll be like, oh, I want more of this. Like, oh, well, come play D&D. It's just better. So you just pick a day to play, tangent, and you can get everyone there, herd it up. You can estimate your time is going to be 3+ hours. You are going to need.
Make sure that the people that are coming, especially if it's the first time that they've played, understand that they're sort of in it for the long haul. Like you make an evening of this. This isn't like a board game where you sit down and you start and you finish in an hour.
Yeah, it will take you a little bit of time, but it's rewarding. So it's definitely worth a try, especially if there's new people out there watching to be a DM, try it. It's definitely worth a try. And I mean, there's tons of resources out there that you can get your hands on to try it, and you should.
And your group will thank you, even if you're a longtime player that has never DM'd before. I really like playing with new DMs. Because everybody has their own way of DMing, and chances are, if it's your first time DMing, you're going to be a little nervous and not be too out of the box, but the more you do it, the more you'll get into it, you'll develop your own style, exactly. And playing with different DMs as a player is really fun. I think it'll just strengthen your role-playing group as a whole.
And not only that, but DMing new players is awesome.
Yeah.
Because they come up with the best ideas. Because they don't know what they can do, so they try everything. Mm-hmm. And I hate to say it, but veteran players can get kind of, they know how to play the game.
They get stuck in their ways. They know how to exploit things.
Yeah. So they know that if they attack this in a certain way, but I mean, a new player can come in and be like, well, can I pull this door down on the enemy? Yeah, of course you can. Roll this thing, or do this thing.
And a new player doesn't know things like you need fire to stop a troll's regeneration, and new players are great. Again, topic for a different video. But sort of going hand in hand with that, you need imagination to play. Whether you're a new player, an experienced player, a new DM, an experienced DM, that's first and foremost what you need to play. Because this isn't like a video game, role-playing game. There's not all these great visual aids. There's some great art that's in the books.
Yes, there is.
Don't get me wrong. Like, the artwork is some of my favorite things about D&D. Mm-hmm. But all of the action takes place in your head. You might have your minis facing each other on the table, but this is combat. Not very exciting. Napa would destroy this thing, by the way. But if you're doing this in initiative, turn-by-turn order, trading blows and using your abilities, and it's a lot more exciting than just that.
Just plastic sitting on the table.
And not only in your combat, in your world. If you make your own world, I'm not an artist, so I don't generally have sketches of things to go along with the things that I'm explaining. So you need to just have an open mind to be able to intake information, and you need to have a good imagination to give information out to your players.
Yeah, and always err on the side of too much. If you think you're giving too much information about your setting or the description of something, give more. Because nothing, you can be like, oh man, I want to describe this bridge. And it's a wide bridge, and it's long, and it's tall. And yeah, that's all well and good. That's the physical description. But, like expand on that. Use that I word, the imagination, to be like, oh yeah, it looks like it's of dwarven make, but it has been recently taken over by humans, and you can see the lesser craftsmanship from them. And the center tracks are worn down from years of travel as carts and horses and travelers have traversed over this canyon. And, you know, it drops 200 feet to the plummeting death of darkness below. That gives you, you know, that's a lot of information. But
I felt like I was really walking across that bridge.
But though your players will really enjoy that because it, you know, like Brandon said, everything's in your mind. So the more descriptive you can give, the better. Even if it's just the dumbest thing to be like, oh, you can feel the breeze like pushing you towards the edge just because of how windy it is over this bridge. Yeah, that, you know, in game that might not actually come into play, but like it will give you, you know, you've been on a bridge before. Well, most people have been on a bridge before. I won't say you have, but most people have been on a bridge before, and you know how wind works, and you know you can feel the wind more, and there's nothing there to block the wind coming at you. It'll immerse you and your players into your world the more descriptive you give. And you know, if you know, you don't need to go on for an hour, but if you go on for 5 minutes, your players will be like, oh wow, this bridge must be important, and they'll take it seriously, and they'll really get into the game, and they might start describing what they're doing more, which again just makes the game better.
Mm-hmm. You also need an adventure. My personal opinion is that a first-time DM should run a published adventure. Takes a lot of the work out of it for you, and it also sort of allows you to see how encounters are built, how XP and treasure is handed out. It's just a lot of extra information that is already done for you, and once you get a published book under your belt, it's a lot easier to take and say, okay, well, now I know that appropriate encounters for this level are things like this. It's really fun to run your own games. Just in my experience, new DMs tend to forget a lot of the little things when they're running their first game, and it just works better for everybody if you're running an adventure that is published already. It doesn't have to be a long one. Just something that is sort of structured a little better for you. It's sort of like a walkthrough almost.
And not only that, but it'll cut half your work. You won't have to make up that adventure. It's written all there for you.
Yeah, and you can always change your adventure around. In one of our previous videos, we talk about making adventures your own. That's just something that you do.
So another thing you need is dice, or whatever it is that your game uses. I mean, some games don't use dice, some games do. D&D uses dice, so you're going to need to get some dice. Whether that be real dice like these, which you can roll and you can have fun with, or you can get some dice apps, which some DMs will let you play. But I mean, if you're really on a budget and you're really strapped that much for cash, you know,
that's true.
Don't feel like you need to go out and buy, you know, the fanciest dice set. I mean, some of my favorite dice are just the cheap, you know, $3 dice that are out there.
So. Yeah. I have this clear set of dice. It's the first set of dice I ever bought. Favorite set.
Going on with dice, you definitely need a space to play.
Mm-hmm.
D&D doesn't take up a lot of space because it's played in your mind, but you definitely need enough room for you, your players, your books, and preferably a table, because playing on the floor really gets old after a while. So, you know, there's tons of places. If you don't have a personal space of your own, usually there's some game shops around. A lot of the times you can work it out with your library, your local library, to get a room for, you know, a couple hours and go play down there. But the less distractions you can get, you know, for your game, like computers, cell phones, TVs, the less distractions you have, the more people are going to be concentrating on what you're telling them, which will just be a boon to your game.
Yeah, exactly. If you're all sitting around a table in a quiet room, and people are sort of forced to listen to you. Hopefully they want to listen to you. You're just going to have a lot better experience.
Definitely.
It's a lot to take in. Don't be discouraged. I think that there is a shortage of DMs out there because a lot of people just
They're afraid of it.
Oh, I wouldn't be good at it, or they're afraid of it, or they don't want to put the money out or anything. With the internet, really, you don't need to put any money out if that is your big hang up. Obviously, you want to support the game that you play.
Yeah, but I mean, sometimes they...
But even Dungeons and Dragons now, they have
like a starter kit.
D&D Basics,
Yeah.
I think it's called.
Something
like that, where you can go and you can get just all the basic rules right there online for you to read. And I've seen people take those basic rules and print them out and just 3-hole punch them and have them in a spiral, and that's their rule book. And they play games with that, and they have a great time. And that's really what it's about, is just having a great time.
Yeah. And it is overwhelming, but in a good way. It's nothing's better than when you do your first plot hook.
The payoff is great.
Yeah, definitely. So just to go over our list, because we did throw quite a bit of information at you. You need the books. You need some players and a time to play with them. You need your imagination and or a story. You need some dice or whatever it is your rules use to calculate things, and you need somewhere to play it. So those are the 5 things that you're going to need to be a new DM, and we hope this helps you. Let us know what else we missed. Maybe we missed something. We're human. It happens. I'm not an elf. I'm not perfect. So let us know if we missed anything, and while you're down there, you might as well like and subscribe and share it. Let other new DMs out there know.
Yeah, share your first DM story with us.
Yeah, let us know. We want to know.
I'm sure there's some nightmares out there. I DM'd for like 2 years before I really even knew how to play the game, so I was probably really bad.
Yeah, but those are some of the best games in my opinion.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're Dudes of Divination. We're here in DM Spotlight giving you some information. And as always, we'll see you at the table.